Do you know what your money is doing right now? Not what you think it's doing, not what you plan for it to do, what it's actually doing. Because I didn't know. I'm 82 years old. Well, 95 now. But for 45 years, I ran a hardware store in Cleveland, and I thought I understood money. I understood inventory. I understood payroll. I understood the difference between a good month and a bad month. What I did not understand, what nobody sat down and told me, was how much was leaving quietly. Not in one big disaster, not in a bad investment I can point to and say, there, that's where it went. In small things, monthly things, things I had said yes to once and then forgotten about completely. I found out the hard way. Margaret, my wife, God rest her, she used to do the household accounts on the last Sunday of every month. Sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and a pencil. Every dollar written down. I never sat with her. I thought, she's got it. She knows what she's doing. And she did know what she was doing. The problem is she died 3 years ago, and I had to sit down at that table alone for the first time in 51 years. And what I found on that yellow legal pad, her last one, still in the drawer, changed the way I think about every dollar I've ever spent. So today I want to talk to you about 7 things. 7 things that were quietly draining our money every single month. Some of them I knew about and ignored. Some of them I genuinely had no idea. And if you're over 65 and you think you have your finances figured out, I want you to listen carefully, because I thought the same thing. The first one is subscriptions. I know, you've heard this before. Stay with me. When I sat down with Margaret's legal pad, I found 4 streaming services. 4. I watch the evening news and baseball when it's on. Margaret liked those British detective shows. She's been gone 3 years. 3 of those services were still running. Every month, automatically, without asking. $37 a month. $444 a year. For shows nobody in this house is watching. But here's the part that got me. It wasn't just the streaming. There was a gym membership from 2019, a magazine I subscribed to in 2018 that I hadn't received in 2 years because they'd switched to digital and I never set it up. A roadside assistance plan on top of the one that came with my car insurance. I went through every single line. Took me 4 hours. I found $212 a month in things I was paying for that I either didn't use, didn't know I had, or thought I had canceled years ago. $212 every month. That's $2,544 a year. Gone. Here's what I learned the hard way about subscriptions. They are designed to be invisible. The companies know that if you see the charge clearly, you might cancel. So they make it small. They make it automatic. They make it easy to forget. And they count on the fact that you signed up once, gave them your card number, and moved on with your life. I was exactly what they were counting on. The second thing is insurance overlap. This one surprised me more than anything else on the list. When you've been alive as long as I have, You accumulate insurance policies the way you accumulate furniture. You buy a piece here, a piece there. Some of it you needed at the time, some of it salesmen talked you into, and it all sits there. I had 3 different policies that covered essentially the same thing. My regular health insurance, a supplemental policy I'd bought in 2006, and a hospital indemnity plan my son Daniel had suggested back in 2015 when I had a scare with my heart. All 3 covered hospital stays. I was paying premiums on all 3. My insurance agent, young woman, very sharp, she sat down with me about 6 months after Margaret died because I called her about something unrelated, and she went through all of it. She looked at me and said, "Mr. Hayes, you have been paying for the same coverage 3 times." I sat there for a moment. I said, "How long has that been going on?" She said, "The overlap started in 2015. That's 9 years." 9 years. I'm not going to tell you the number because it's embarrassing, but I will tell you this. I've been here before. I've lost money I didn't need to lose. What made this one sting is that I thought I was being responsible. I thought having more coverage meant more protection. It didn't. It just meant more checks going out the door every month. The third thing is convenience fees. Now, this is one Margaret handled differently than me. She paid everything by check. I thought that was old-fashioned. I moved everything to automatic online payments when she got sick and couldn't manage it anymore. I was trying to make things simpler. What I didn't read, what I clicked through without reading, were the processing fees. Some of them were $1. Some were $2.99. One was $4.50 per transaction. Doesn't sound like much. I was paying 11 bills electronically. The fees added up to $14.30 a month. Almost $200 a year for the convenience of not writing checks. Margaret used to say, "Bob, free is a word they use right before they charge you." She wasn't wrong about much. The fourth thing is the home you're not using. This is the one nobody wants to talk about. I live alone in a 4-bedroom house. I have lived in this house since 1971. For a long time I told myself, well, the grandchildren come to visit. My daughter Susan stays in the summer sometimes. And the other rooms, I keep them ready. Ready. That's the word I used. I'm heating those rooms in winter, cooling them in summer, running electricity through them year-round, paying property taxes on square footage nobody uses. I had the house assessed 2 years ago because Daniel suggested it. The heating and cooling for the 2 unused bedrooms alone was costing me close to $80 a month, nearly $1,000 a year, to keep empty rooms at a comfortable temperature. I'm not saying you should sell your house. I'm not saying I should. But I had to be honest with myself about what those rooms were costing me and why I was really keeping them. And the honest answer, the one I didn't want to say out loud, is that those rooms feel like Margaret is still in them, and I'm not ready for them to be empty. That's not a financial decision. That's a personal one. But I had to know I was making it. The fifth thing is food waste. Margaret cooked for 2 for 51 years. I cook for one, or I try to. What actually happens is this. I go to the store and I buy the things I've always bought, the same quantities, the same habits, because the store is the same, the cart is the same, the aisle is the same. My brain doesn't automatically recalculate for one person. I tracked it for 1 month. I threw away, I'm not exaggerating, I threw away $53 worth of food in 1 month. Things that went bad before I got to them. Half a loaf of bread. Vegetables I bought with good intentions. Leftovers I made too much of. $53. $636 a year. In food that went from the store to my refrigerator to the trash. I've been here before. I used to lose inventory at the store the same way, ordering what we'd always ordered, not adjusting for what had actually changed. The fix at the store was a better system. The fix at home was harder. Because changing how you shop means accepting that your life has changed. And some days I'm not ready to accept that. The sixth thing is banking fees. I've banked at the same place for 40 years. Same branch, same name on the sign out front. Well, the name has changed 3 times through mergers, but the building is the same. I assumed, and this was the mistake, I assumed that because I'd been there 40 years and had significant accounts, I wasn't paying fees. I was wrong. Going through the statements, which I had not done line by line in years, I found monthly maintenance fees, out-of-network ATM fees from a trip I'd taken, a fee for paper statements, $19.50 a month in fees. At a bank I had been loyal to for 4 decades. I called them. I said, I've been a customer here for 40 years. I have never once asked you to waive a fee. I would like you to look at my account and tell me what you can do. They waived the maintenance fee immediately. Immediately. Which means they could have waived it any time. They just didn't until I asked. Here's what I learned the hard way. Loyalty is a one-way street with most banks. They count on it. They depend on the fact that you won't pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. The 7th thing is the hardest one to talk about. It's the money you're spending on other people's problems. Now, I want to say this carefully, because I'm not telling you to stop being generous. That's not what this is. But I want to be honest about something that took me a long time to see clearly. My son Daniel, he's 54, lives in Chicago. He went through a rough stretch in 2018, lost his job, had some debt. I helped him. That was the right thing to do. What I didn't notice, because I didn't want to notice, was that the help never quite ended. It became smaller, it became quieter, it became occasional, but it kept coming. A few hundred here when he mentioned his car needed work, a contribution to his daughter's school trip because things were tight, a monthly amount I'd started sending that I'd originally said was temporary. 3 years later, it was still going out. I was sending Daniel over $400 a month. Not because he was in crisis anymore, but because stopping felt like saying, I don't love you. And I couldn't say that, even to myself. The conversation I had with him about it was the hardest conversation I've had since Margaret's funeral. I sat him down during his visit last Thanksgiving. I said, "Daniel, I need to talk to you about something, and I need you to hear me out before you say anything." He sat across from me at this kitchen table. I told him what I'd been sending, the total over 3 years. I told him I wasn't angry, and then I told him I had to stop. He was quiet for a moment, and then he said something I didn't expect. He said, "Dad, I didn't know it had been that long." He didn't know either. That's when I understood something. I had not been helping Daniel. I had been managing my own fear of letting him down. Those are two different things. He was fine. He'd been fine for a while. I was the one who needed to believe I was still needed. So let me tell you what I added up. Subscriptions I didn't use, $212 a month. Insurance overlap, a number I'm still embarrassed about. Convenience fees, $14. Heating and cooling empty rooms, $80. Food waste, $53. Banking fees, $19.50. Financial support that had become habit, $400. That's over $770 a month in things I hadn't consciously decided to spend, things I had just never examined. I'm 95 years old. I've owned a business. I've kept a payroll. I've survived 2 recessions and a near bankruptcy and a flood that took out the store's ground floor in '93. And I still had $700 a month leaving my account every month, quietly, without me knowing. Margaret used to say, "Bob, money doesn't disappear. It goes somewhere. You just have to look." She sat at that kitchen table every last Sunday of the month for 50 years, with her legal pad and her pencil, looking. I thought it was her thing, her habit. It wasn't. It was the thing that kept us solvent through all of it. Through the lean years and the flood and the recessions and the kids and everything else. It was her sitting at that table once a month and looking. I never did it with her. I wish I had. Not because of the money. Because of the hour we would have spent at that table together. Now I sit there alone, legal pad and pencil, every last Sunday. It's quieter than it used to be, but it's the right thing to do. So I'll leave you with this, not a lesson, not a lecture, just a question. When did you last sit down and look? Not at your general balance, not at whether the number felt okay. Really look, line by line, at where every dollar actually goes. Because there's a good chance something is leaving quietly right now, and has been for a while, and you just haven't looked. If something in this conversation stayed with you, leave me a comment. I read every one of them. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been telling themselves their finances are fine without actually checking, send it to them. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is hand them a mirror.